So let me give a quick introduction. Welcome to our top 10 wine leads and floor staff, wine managers. It's Marcus Hanson from Small Lot Wine, your favorite wine rep, here with Rodrigo Redmont, all the way from Abruzzo, Italy. And we're going to talk about Colle Corviano today, which you guys just brought into stores. Hi, Rodrigo. How are you?
I'm doing good, Marcus. How about yourself? How are things with you?
Doing well, thanks. Yeah, we're excited here in Minnesota to get these wines kicked off. You know, we just got through Easter and lots of vaccines going into arms here. So we're excited for the rebirth of spring and some really great springtime wines.
Fantastic, great.
Yeah, so excellent. Why don't you tell us where you are located and where is Colle Corviano?
Yeah, so a little bit about our estate. Colle Corviano is our family estate, which is located in the town of Colle Corvino, thus the origin of the name Colle Corviano. And we are located in the central Italian region of Abruzzo, strategically halfway between very high mountain tops and the seaside. We're literally 10 miles away from the seaside and maybe 20 miles away from already, maybe 3,000 feet in height. In fact, this is one of the unique characteristics of the Abruzzo region, that you have an extraordinary biodiversity in such a short space. I mean, you have to realize, Marcus, that within an hour's drive, you go from sea level to 9,000 feet in height. We are in a region that has the southmost glacier of Europe, the highest mountain in central Italy. At the same time, we have one of the warmest seas in all the Europe, because the Adriatic Sea, which is part of the Mediterranean, so in the southern part of Europe, is a very shallow sea. It's salty and it's particularly warm. And so we really have the two extremes. You can imagine that, in about a month, we'll still be able to go skiing in the morning and swimming in the afternoon.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, Abruzzo is not maybe necessarily for Americans the first place we think of for Italian wine and food as well. So tell us a little bit about Abruzzo and what's, obviously you touched on geography, but why it's significant.
Yeah, the Abruzzo region and Abruzzo wines in general are interesting because first and foremost, they are authentic. This is the most important part. Today, I think that when people are looking to have that wine experience, the first thing that they want is the authenticity of the product. They're looking for something that is artisanal, that is somehow a unique experience, and is something that represents really the land from where it comes from. And I think this is what the Abruzzo can really offer. I mean, it's a little bit off the beaten path. Normally people will fly into Rome and then they'll drive 2 hours to reach the Abruzzo region. And Rome is so filled with so many things to do that 9 out of 10 times they don't make it out to the Abruzzo region. But if you push yourself to go off the beaten path, you can discover one of the true gems of Italy. And wines from Abruzzo are historically very well known, first and foremost because of their value. I mean, we have a 2,000-year history like many other parts of Italy. This is an area where we produce the first olive oil to receive DOP classification in all of Europe. So it's not only an area which is known for the production of wine, but it's a unique area for the production of any agricultural product. So it's a very fertile region. If you go to, for example, Piedmont, you will see that it's very monocultivar. I mean, you only have vineyards. If you go to Tuscany, you'll see that there's a lot of vineyards, maybe some olive groves. Sometimes you see some sunflowers, but not much else. If you come to the Abruzzo region, the region is so fertile, A, because it's in the southern part of Italy, so there's an incredible amount of sunshine. But B, it's a land which is filled with rivers and with snow-capped mountains. So there's a very large amount of water that flows through the entire region. And this is very important today as the climate is warming up throughout the world to have access to this water. So when you come to the Abruzzo region, 1/3 of the region is covered in national parks. Pretty much anything grows wild here without any problem. So I would say this is the unique feature of Abruzzo. First of all, some really unique historical, authentic traditions. So if you're looking for something that is true and is real heritage, that's why I would come here. And secondly, the incredible value, price quality relationship of the wines we have here in the region.
Fantastic. Now, tell us specifically about Colle Corviano. Where does the name come from? Obviously, you said the town. Does it have a transliterative name, and maybe a little bit about the sustainability as well?
Yeah. So the Colle Corviano estate is actually a very young estate. We purchased the estate about 4 or 5 years ago, my wife and I. And we purchased this unique estate because it was a 30-hectare or 90-acre contiguous estate that had already vineyards that had been planted and were producing a very good quality wine. We chose this property because it has a unique mix of clay and sand, which results in very elegant wines. The advantage of having a contiguous estate which surrounds a lake is that you can really produce sustainability. Today sustainability is a very trendy, very popular word. Everybody, the two themes in the wine industry everybody's running after is female involvement, so gender diversity, and the other is, like a green sort of identity within the winery. And, when you're talking about a green identity, it's important, but any agriculture winery or any person involved in agriculture knows how important it is to sustain your estate for your children and for future generations. We say it's like the discovery of hot water. It's something that's been known for years. It's not something that all of a sudden popped up today. But everybody chooses the path that they take in order to reach that goal. And we made a decision. We looked at it, and we decided that the path was to go sustainable. And what that means is that we try and farm as organic as we can. However, when we make the decision of exactly what practice to make, we look for the true sustainability in the long run, and we also look at the well-being of our fruit. And this is something we started right from the start. We knew from the start that in order to produce a good quality wine, we needed to invest in the health of the land that we own. But, I give you an example, for example. The last couple of days have seen very low temperatures pretty much throughout Europe. And if you work with other suppliers, for example, what's going on right now in Burgundy. The majority of the crop was lost in Burgundy, especially for Chardonnay this year, because the temperatures dropped and everybody was lighting fires around the vineyards to try and keep them. Now, my question is, how much paraffin is being burned right now in the middle of those vineyards in Burgundy? And how organic is that? Funnily enough, nobody's talking about that. So what I'm trying to say is the sustainable path must be a lifestyle decision. It's not a marketing gimmick. It has to be something you truly believe in and that you apply in everything you do in any situation, in normality, but also in a situation of emergency. And so we chose something that could be sustainable in all moments and not something only in the best climatic conditions. So this is what we have chosen. We have chosen to take a sustainable path that really invests and looks at the well-being of our vineyards and the world in the long term.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well said. Well said. Let's dive into the wines. Let's talk about the Pinot Grigio from Colline Pescarese, the hills of Pescara, and talk to us about Pinot Grigio as well as the difference between a Pinot Grigio from Abruzzo versus the Veneto, where you also make a Pinot Grigio from.
Yeah. So, everybody, when you talk about Abruzzo, the native varietals are mainly Pecorino and Trebbiano d'Abruzzo. However, what we call more mainstream varietals like Pinot Grigio or like Chardonnay have been planted in the region for, I would say, more than 300 years. So remember that when you talk about non-traditional varietals in Italy, that means that they've been around for less than 1,000 years. So I want to put that in context also before we move in. It's not they've been planted for 20 years. They've been around for hundreds of years. Pinot Grigio in Abruzzo, obviously, because the amount of sun and the richer soil we have, results in a little bit more of a fuller body, a little bit more of richness, and the character which you really find inside our Pinot Grigio is a character of minerality, which is what we look for. And this is coming from the limestone which is present in the soil, because the region we used to be in used to be covered by the Adriatic Sea. And so you find this calcareous composition resulting from that presence of the marine sediment from millions of years ago. We produce a stainless steel, fermented Pinot Grigio, so crisp, fresh, classic Italian. Marcus, you've been in Italy, that Italians have a preference for pure flavors, have a preference for little use of oak, because what we appreciate, be it in food or be it in wine, it's the single ingredient. We look for that pure flavor. We like to taste the grape in our mouth. So when we produce a Pinot Grigio, different from, maybe Alsace or other winemaking regions, Italians and us in Abruzzo, therefore, enjoy producing, a very fresh, crisp, almost aperitif-like Pinot Grigio. High acid, because of us, obviously, the surrounding mountains. But I would say, very pleasant and very refreshing.
Excellent. And this is a wine that the staff will be tasting and trying. Beautiful, fresh, as you mentioned, mineral driven from that limestone soil. You've got day to night temperature swings because of your proximity to both the ocean or the Adriatic and the mountains, which keeps it fresh, keeps that vibrancy there. So.
Yeah. I think in terms of flavors, rather than, white pulp, you'll find a little bit more stone fruit character, probably would be the flavors that you would find, but with very refreshing acidity, because that's something we enjoy. As a family, we have a preference for German and Austrian wines, aside from our own, obviously. And so maybe you find that also in the style of the wines. That's what we're looking for, that purity inside the flavor of the white wines.
Fantastic. We're moving to Sangiovese, so the Italian classic red wine, at least as far as Americans. So we love Sangiovese, and yours is, I would say, different than a Sangiovese from Toscana. It's got some softer characteristics. It's got a little more flesh to it, and is really, really versatile. For me, I found this to be a really versatile wine on the table. So a consumer, really, really consumer-friendly wine.
Yeah. So as many of you will know, Sangiovese is the most widely planted varietal in Italy. It's planted pretty much from the southern to the northern part of Italy, even though the main focus is obviously in that central block, from Tuscany all the way to the Marche and Abruzzo region. The majority of the production is also in Emilia-Romagna. I don't know how much you know about my background, but you may recall that I worked in Montalcino for many years, and our winemaker worked in Montalcino for many years. So when we decided to vinify another wine outside of the king varietal that we have here in Abruzzo, which is Montepulciano, it was almost automatic that we would select a Sangiovese, because it's our first love. That's the grape variety that baptized me, or catechized me in the wine industry. It was, the first historical bottle that I drank was a 1975 Brunello, which I still remember. And I was, barely 22 years old, and everything happens. It's that bell rung, or that angel voice rang in my head. And all of a sudden I was, stuck in this wonderful wine world we're in. And the Sangiovese we produce here in Abruzzo is definitely a lot more luscious. It's a lot richer because, again, of this more fertile land and greater amount of sunshine. In fact, when you compare this Sangiovese to the one produced in Tuscany, Tuscan Sangiovese tends to be a little bit thinner, a little bit, I don't want to say greener, but a little bit sharper. And you can see the ripeness of the grapes that we have here in the Abruzzo region in the flavor of the wine. You taste this this wonderful dark fruit, this cherry flavor, dark cherry flavor, and the Sangiovese that we produce is obviously aged for about 3 months in oak. So it's lightly oaked. We don't like to, overburden. And like you said, this results in a, extremely versatile wine because, first of all, Italian classics, lasagna, pizza, great pairing. Secondly, no better wine to drink, with a barbecued grill going on out there. As the season starts to warm, that's a great bottle to, non-pretentious, something which is, easily enjoyable, can be served a little bit colder if you enjoy that in the summer months. And, great burger, sausage, pork chop, pairing wine for us. Definitely my go-to wine when I'm having an informal gathering with friends, no question about that.
Awesome. And you mentioned the use of some oak barrels. These are not new oak barrels, right? This is more for integration and texture for the wine to weave itself together than oak flavor.
Correct. Well, first of all, I'm going to try and move this over. It's the larger barrel oak aging that we utilize for the Sangiovese. So we obviously use at the estate, the French barrique that you see here behind me, but also the larger barrels that I showed you earlier on. So it's large, 34 hectoliter, 5,000 bottles inside each barrel. Barrels that have already some age, and therefore they don't impart as much wood, but really do more of the micro-oxygenation. So more of that softening of, the sort of capricious or how can I say, sharp-edged, soften the sharp edges of the Sangiovese. Absolutely.
Wonderful. And this is going to be a great go-to wine for the staff to get behind, recommend to all of their folks who are looking for a really good value for barbecue. As you mentioned, this is a great party wine as well. Speaking of crowd pleasers, Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, one of my personal favorites, a grape that I fell in love with because of a wine that you produce, and not Americans' first thought when it comes to DOC Italian reds, but this is in fact the most popular DOC red wine in Italy, correct?
Absolutely, the most widely sold around the world, in fact. If you look at, DOC classified wines, obviously, if you're talking about regular table wines, then it's a different story. But when you talk about, DOC classified wines, it is, the most popular, the most widely sold and appreciated. And historically, it was considered Rome's red wine of choice because we are close to Rome, and because the production of wines around Rome was predominantly white wines, like in the case of Est, or in the case of, Frascati, or, wines of the Roman castles. They're all, white varietal based. So when Romans, would go out and grab a bottle of red, 9 out of 10 times it would be Montepulciano. That's really the claim of fame to the Montepulciano grape. Listen, we obviously have we're not very impartial when we talk about Montepulciano, because obviously, we have, it's like it's like kids, right? You try to be as balanced as possible, but deep inside you, at least who's the smartest or the cutest or the friendliest. It's that way, but you can never say that. So, Montepulciano is a grape variety which has very high tannins. That doesn't mean it's harsh. It just means that it's a wine that has a strong personality and has a long aging potential, like Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a very late ripening grape variety, like Cabernet. It has a very thick skin. And what this permits the vinification to do is very long maceration. So when you produce an estate product, because unfortunately you have 80% of the production of Montepulciano, which comes from co-ops or bottlers, but when you produce a quality product from the Abruzzo region made with the Montepulciano grape, you have a very beautifully, very deep, purple colored wine with a lot of flavor and wonderful balance. And, for us, it's our, when you're talking about spaghetti with meatballs, or you're talking about, our meat ragouts, or lamb that we have in the area, it's our natural go-to wine. It's, the beauty of Montepulciano is that it's a very well-rounded wine. And very often Americans don't have, just because of the way they're brought up, and I'm going to generalize now, being part American, as you know, I can afford to do that. The American palate obviously grows up on a sweeter profile than Italians who grow up on, espresso, ristretto, and amaro, right? So we grow up with a preference for salt versus sweet. And but Americans grow up on a sweeter palate, and so often the Nebbiolo or the Sangiovese, which is used to produce Chianti or Barolos, tend to be a little bit too sharp for the everyday consumption. So Montepulciano is very interesting because it's more of a crowd pleaser. Everybody can enjoy a glass of Montepulciano. It has, the structure and the flavor that a connoisseur will enjoy, but it doesn't have that aggressiveness and that harshness that maybe, a first-time enjoyer of red wine will necessarily care for. So that's my comfort zone when I'm offering someone a bottle of wine, is I know that they will enjoy this wine.
Excellent. Yeah, we've found tremendous application with Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, especially doing consumer tastings back when they were a thing in 2019. You put this bottle, this varietal, in front of the American consumer that's looking for an American red blend or a Merlot that has richness and softness and flavor. And this wine is all of those things. Plus, it's part of that only 20% of the Montepulciano d'Abruzzo production that is estate grown. And it's a really, really great value, under 15 bucks. You'd be hard pressed to find a domestic wine that hits all of those markers, including the sustainability markers, for this price. So we've got a real winner in the Montepulciano d'Abruzzo. And this is a wine that, once we turn our consumers onto it, they're going to be coming back and buying 3 or 4 bottles at a time because it is such a good value.
One last thing, obviously, I do want to emphasize that we are vegan certified as well. So if there are any vegan drinkers, obviously this is a wine they can naturally go to. That's all our wines, so be it white or red. We use bentonite for the filtering for the whites, so there are no animal byproducts in any way. And for the reds, we naturally decant sediment, so there's no issue there.
Fantastic. Well, you've mentioned we, and we don't want to leave Antonella out of the conversation as well. Your wife, who is your co-conspirator in the process. Tell us just a little bit about your family and maybe a bit about your winemaking background to close it out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, how could I not include Antonella? There's no question that I would not be here today if it weren't for her. Because the winery was born as a result of our growing relationship and obviously our attachment to the roots of the area. Antonella is the woman I found here locally in the Abruzzo region almost 20 years ago. She is someone who is, very attached to this area because she grew up in a small hilltop town of only about 7,000 people, probably. You'd be able to fit in one of the skyscrapers in the Twin Cities, probably the 7,000 people. So, she grew up, with living, being cooked by her grandmother and, running around in the streets locally. And she's a brilliant mind, she's very mathematical. She has a passion for IT. Yet, she enjoys good wine and good food. And, that's a must in our industry. If you don't have someone to share a great bottle with, it's half, if not more, of the fun. The wine industry is one where you will never make money, but you certainly make a lot of friends along the road, and you'll definitely eat and drink well. And so I think that's what anyone can best aspire to in life. Be surrounded by friends and eat and drink well. And so that's the life we've chosen together. And we have 3 wonderful children, 7, 5, and 2, who basically rule our lives, especially during COVID era. Thank God the schools have opened again. But it's a great journey, to take with your soul partner. And looking forward to growing further together with her over the next few years.
Fabulous, and many more vintages to come. Well, we look forward to seeing you again. Not sure if that will be in Germany at Provine, here in the States, or if it will be at your place there in Abruzzo, which we look forward to traveling to at some point. But thank you, Rodrigo, for your time for your
Thank you,
knowledge,
Marcus.
and for getting this brand off the ground with us. We're very excited to get these wines into the hands of our eager consumers here in Minnesota.
Thank you, Marcus. All the best. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Cheers.
Cheers.